Hey, so in this video, we'll be doing the Easter eggs and predictions for Season 4, Episode 18 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So beware spoilers if you're not caught up. So, I've said this before, I'm not a big politics man, I never really actually caught on to this, but apparently when Fitz said, nevertheless, she persisted, it's actually like a reference to McCall and Elizabeth Warren. Apparently, Mitch said this in a debate against Elizabeth. So that's about it. But we get to see a little bit of Mac in this episode, and Hope is actually reading the history book to like for school, and you actually see a picture of Whitehall, and apparently what they confirmed that there is a connection between Whitehall and Fitz in this article or whatever. So it's nice that they actually had that confirmation, because I've said this before, that this Fitz or whatever white like this Hydra feels so much like the Whitehall that there had to be some kind of sort of connection. So yeah, but Mac goes on to basically explain that what's not in the history book is they wiped out Martin Luther King out of history, and I would want to know what other stuff, because they seem like they took out everything. But yeah, and Mace, we get a little bit of May in this episode, and she has an interaction with Kenneth's return, and he's actually gave her Mr. Hyde formula, and we know it's that because they talked about the gorilla and the hint of peppermint and all that kind of stuff. So I'm assuming it actually is the actual Mr. Hyde formula and not a modification. I'm hoping, because I don't want her to die. Because the last time the world messed around with Mr. Hyde formula, it started slowly killing Mace. So hopefully they just kept it as Mr. Hyde formula and nothing else. So yeah, talking about Mace, there was like a neat little parallel, I guess, maybe connection, but it feels like Mace in this world took up the leadership role or SO role for Trip and Ward, because he's the connective tissue of Ward and Trip, so it's kind of cool there. But and throughout the episode, they were referring to a bus, which in this world it's actually an actual bus, but it's neat that they're actually had like a reference to the bus from season 1 and 2, because that was their like way of traveling around the world. But in this, they actually had a bus. But yeah, and Mace actually talks about his life in the framework, about how he lived in Brooklyn, and had a plumber for a father. I know that they were referring to Captain America, for like, because he was from Brooklyn, all that kind of stuff. But I had immediately thought, since plumber plus Brooklyn equals Super Mario to me. I'm a huge Super Mario fan, so I just immediately my mind just immediately thought of Super Mario right when I heard Brooklyn and Plumber. So yeah, and it's neat that they are rounding. They neatly wrapped up Mace's storyline with how the season started with Mace versus May, where May was going crazy and she had to be knocked out by Mace, but in the framework, it was on an equal footing, with Mace being inhuman and May on the Mr. Hyde formula. So it was a nice little detail there, where they had an actual fight this episode where it was on equal footing. But Mace's storyline was started out where he was it was by accident. He was saving a person in Vienna from the Sokovia Accords signing and all that kind of stuff, and he just never knew that a woman was under the rubble. But in the framework, he actually became an Inhuman. He actually saved people from the building collapsing, all that kind of stuff. So he lived a lie, died a hero. So it's nice that they did that. Wrapped up that storyline there. And Coulson in this episode, he has slowly been knowing what his past life was or his real life is, and he asks Simmons, "What is it about this guy? Every time I see him, I have this itch like Hive," and that has to be the weirdest reference to Hive, like any character ever. Like, but yeah. Um, then Simmons like goes along and basically explains that he crushed his heart with his metal arm on an alien planet and all that kind of stuff, talking about Maveth and yeah. And when Coulson goes undercover to bring in to sneak in Mace and all that kind of stuff, he talks about Bakshi News, and this is part of what I was explaining in my comment section, is that they announced that the actor Simon Supplin is returning as Bakshi, but it's nice that he's actually coming back and all that kind of stuff, and I'll talk about that later on. But he goes Coulson goes on to say, did it was about an Inhuman with who had line paws for hands, and this reference dates back to episode 18 of season 1 when Garrett was actually in the fridge, and he was saying that the first time he was there, he was putting away a guy named Jim Horton, and who gave himself line paws for hands. So I don't know if he was an Inhuman in the real world. He might not be, but in this is actually referring to a character from the comics called the Griffin, and in the comics, Griffin was actually Yo-Yo's father. So it would be kind of cool if they actually paid that off in some way, where Jim Horton actually came back and was like a villain or whatever for season 5 or the season 2 of Slingshot, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, talking a bit more about Bakshi. When Coulson enters the brainwashing room, you actually hear his voice saying compliance will be rewarded, blah 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 blah, whatever. But yeah, and lastly, for like rounding out everything, or like a little bit, when Coulson meets up with Trip and all that kind of stuff, he refers to the Howling Commandos, how his grandfather was one of them. So his storyline or his like life doesn't seem to have been affected that much, unlike Ward's life did, because he seems like the same person. Like he still the moral compass of the guy, like a good guy. But yeah, but for Daisy and Madam Hydra's storyline, Madam Hydra name drops Lincoln, saying she could have a happy life with him, have kids, but it's nicer that you're seeing Daisy's growth in this season, where she actually has accepted his death. It wouldn't be real, it wouldn't be fair, and stuff like that. So you can see that she's actually is responsible enough that she knows that it wouldn't be right to actually just live a life that's fake. But yeah, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but what's called Daisy refers to Madam Hydra as the puppet master, and pulling all the strings. It's possible there was a connection to Ultron, because they are both AI robot people, and because Ultron says there's no strings on me in the movie. So, but yeah, comment down below who's the better villain, Ultron or Ada. I'm pretty sure know a lot of the answers are going to be, so, but just comment down below. But, and a neat little parallel to wrap this storyline up, or this episode up, is it's kind of cool that Skye first gets when she first gets her powers, Trip dies, and when Daisy gets her powers back, Trip returns. I don't know if Trip will be returning in any of the rest of the episodes, but it's kind of cool that they have that kind of tie in there. But um, and I'm honestly, for predictions, like I've said before, Ward is gonna die. No doubt about that. He's not getting it out of it. And since what's called, if this is actually a real, like a real world or whatever, like it's actually a real world that you can just jump through dimensions or whatever. Uh, since Hope has no mother in this world, we need her into the real world. I I don't want to let her live in that Hydra world by herself when Mac actually eventually gets out, maybe. But yeah, Mac needs to bring hope. And since I said they were talking about the responsibility of Daisy, and since Mace dies, I'm assuming they're leading up to the point of where Daisy actually takes up the responsibility of becoming director of Shield, like she does in the comics. So I'm assuming that's what they're gonna be at the end of the season. But I could be wrong. So it could go somewhere totally different. And what I've said before was that I'm just taking this as like confirmation now, because first Kenneth teased his return, Bakshi teased his return, and then there was a picture of Trip with Bakshi, and I just assumed that they were. It's possible that he was going to return, and they all returned. So, the pictures with Hunter and Fitz, or Ian and Nick, that's just confirmation now that he's going to return at some point. I don't know when, but I'm just saying that as confirmation, and I'm hoping that maybe since they were ties to each other, they're connected to each other, Bobby has to return at some point. I don't know if she will, but I hope. There was like a picture that it's very blurry, but it's possible that it was Adrian Palicki, but I'm not going to take that as confirmation that it was. But yeah, and if Hunter does return in the framework or whatever, it would be kind of cool if they did a similar storyline where, or arc where you actually see Hunter actually be like a leader of like a resistance in like the UK version of Shield or whatever, because in the comics it was called Strike, I believe, and he was actually the leader, and he was actually friends with Nick Fury. So it would be kind of cool if Mace and Lance Hunter were actually friends or whatever, and they were actually a resistance around the world. So yeah, comment down below if I missed any Easter eggs or references, and if you have any predictions, comment down below. See ya.